Hey, Travis, what can you tell us about Ben, Miller, and Harlock not being on the ice today?
I will tell you that they were unavailable.
Do you expect them to travel?
Not sure.
Next up is Thomas Drance.
Travis, in the event that you have to play without Miller for any length of time, what did you like about some of the combos you tried today? What would you expect from a line of Virtanen, Boeser, and Pettersson if thrust into that role?
Well, we tried a different look today on that line, put Mac back in with Gaudette. He's fit there before. Put Jacob with Petey and Bess. I thought that was a fit that made sense. It's hard to tell just in practice, but that's what we did for practice today. Doesn't necessarily mean that's what we're going to do tomorrow. I didn't watch too close as far as how the line looked.
And overall, with this condensed schedule, with the way your club's composed, how much does losing players like Miller, even like Ben, challenge your depth? What do you expect from the guys who step up into those roles?
You're going to have injuries every season. You always do. Like I said, those guys weren't available today. But if you're asking me in general about injuries, that's going to happen. And we'll just next man up. That's always been our motto. We don't dwell on injuries at all, really. We've got a group of guys that just want to play and win hockey games, and whoever's in that night, they always bring their best. And that's kind of the way we go about business.
Next up is Jeff Pettersson.
Hey, Travis, when Chris Tanev left for Calgary, it opened a spot in your leadership group. Who's going to be wearing the A's for your team this year?
Sutter, Bedler.
You're not going to replace Tanev?
Not as of now.
Okay. Also, we saw this morning that Jeremy Colleton got an extension on the eve of the season. I know what you and Jim both said 10 days ago. I'm just wondering, has there been any attempt in these final days ahead of the season to get an extension, or will you coach tomorrow night starting into the final year of your contract?
Well, I'm definitely not ever going to talk about negotiations or talks between Jim and I publicly. I've said that I want to be here long term. I love coaching this team. I think it's an exciting time to be a Canuck, not just from a fan's point, but a player's and a coach as well. And there's nothing else to say, really.
Next up is Jay Janauer.
Travis, I'm curious how you go about having your off-ice meetings with the special teams, the penalty kill unit, the power play, even Clarkey chatting with the goalies. And I think of the Denver Broncos last month playing without quarterbacks because of, the potential COVID exposure there. How do you go about having these meetings, and are you overly cautious because of that?
We're overly cautious with everything. NHL's done a great job with their protocol and guiding players and coaches. We don't want, whether it's penalty kill, power play, team, all our meetings are done with the mind of being very conscious of COVID and doing the right protocols.
Do you keep your goaltenders separate?
Depending on the meeting.
Thank you.
Next up is Patrick Johnson.
Hey, Travis, you guys set a 31-man roster in the summer. It's essentially a 29-man roster this season. How do you look at assembling those sort of last 6, 7, 8 spots on the roster, including the practice squad?
When you say how do you look at it, what do you ask?
Goes into the process of saying, which guy are we going to put here, and which guys are we going to put in Utica, that kind of thing?
I don't follow you, Patrick, to be honest. We're trying to pick the best players that'll help our team win, if that's what, much like you're picking your hockey team all the time.
Well, you can go for the balance of defensemen and balance of forwards. I guess that's what I mean in terms of, whether you're
we're not going to pick 20 forwards and 8D. There's going to be, there's going to be a blend where we'll try to think of different options. Or, we're probably going to go 17 and 9 or 16 and 10, something like that is where we'll probably end up.
And next up, Ben Kuzma.
Hey, Travis, in the postseason last summer, what did you learn about Pettersson in the sense of not only his point production, but his ability to handle the attention? Certain matchups were good or not good for him, and he was still able to drive the play. What did you learn about him, Travis, and how's that going to help him get off on the right foot here in a tough series against the Oilers?
Well, when we went into the bubble, we felt like it was almost a little bit of an off season for some of our younger guys. We had made a decision amongst our staff that we were probably going to play Petey in a more heads-up role. I think it was evident as the playoffs went on that he was ready for that, and we played him straight up against pretty well any of the other team's best lines or second best lines between him and Bo. We still had the option of going with Beagle's line or Sutter's line, and he proved that he can do that. So we think that's a natural progression for him. We've tried to kind of bring him along in that way with the right timetable, time frame to match not only his offensive game, but his defensive game as well, and make sure that he's having success. You don't want to do it too early where a player is getting scored on every game and ultimately not getting the points he wants either, or he's capable of, and helping you in that way. We feel Petey's going to be a player that, we can look for advantages with him against other lines maybe, and also he can play against the best lines, and he showed that in the bubble. And it's a new season, but I see his game still progressing that way.
You're really good with your younger players in terms of giving them enough rope to do the things they do well offensively, yet still keep a strong defensive posture. I mean, Petey is a poster boy for a guy who's super responsible. Do you coach him any differently this year, or do you just let him go?
I think from day one, we've so-called, if you want to use those words, let him go. We've given him freedom offensively. But within meetings and talking with them, we're going to give you that freedom as long as you have a strong understanding of, not taking advantage of that freedom and doing things that are going to cost us wins, and still developing a player's offensive side of his game is important. Much like Hoglander, even now we've made a conscious effort of just teaching certain parts of his game, but not stifling certain parts of his game. And I think you kind of have to get a feel for the player and his hockey sense, his smartness when you're having conversation with him to see where he's at. But you don't want to stifle certain parts of elite players' games. Obviously, Petey's an elite player, and when I talked to him originally, we told him we'll never stifle parts of his game, but as long as he's progressing in other parts.
And with the last question for Coach Green is Daniel Wagner.
Travis, looking at Brock Boeser last season, the goal production wasn't quite where maybe he expected or fans expected, but just from an outside perspective, looking at training camp, his shot seems stronger, his skating seems stronger. What can you say about Boeser from an inside perspective? What have you seen from his game at training camp?
I like how Brock looks right now. I haven't been asked a lot of questions about Brock, and which maybe is a good thing. He's just becoming a really good hockey player that is learning, how to be a good pro. He looks a little quicker to me. Like you said, his shot release is a little. I think he's worked on that. You saw in the goal he scored in the scrimmage with the half slapper down the wall. He looks a little more fluid. And he's got a strong understanding of different parts of the game that no one talks about. I can see that, and he's taking pride in that, and that's the evolution of a young player, not just becoming a good player in the league, but becoming a player in the league that understands what it takes to win. And I think he's really come along nicely in that area. He's a humble kid. He works hard. We're lucky to have him.
And when you look at, like you were saying about Pettersson playing more of a matchup role, how important is it to have a winger like Boeser that has that understanding of those little things in the game that are required?
Yeah, well, he goes hand in hand with Petey. I could almost have the same conversation that we just had about Petey going against top lines with Bess. The same conversation. It's been a progression. In the bubble, I think you saw Bess playing against a lot of good lines too. When he was playing with Petey or Bo or whoever it was, I think I could hit repeat on what I just said about Petey, and it'd be the same thing about Bess.